Today, we're diving into a story that, honestly, sounds like it's straight out of a political thriller. You've got a sitting congressman suing a top federal regulator, and the claim that the regulator is using his power as a political weapon. And the spark that lit this whole fire was a single home mortgage. Let's get into it. Just think about that for a second. Scouring databases for the private mortgage records of Democrats. That's the central accusation in this lawsuit we're unpacking. It is a massive charge. A federal official, allegedly, digging into the private financial lives of his political rivals. So how on earth did we get to this point? All right, so first things first, let's meet the key players and really get a handle on what exactly kicked this whole thing off. Okay, so on one side of this, you've got Congressman Eric Swalwell. He's the plaintiff, the one filing the suit. And on the other side, Bill Pulte, the director of the FHFA. That's the agency that oversees huge players like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The conflict really ignited when Pulte's agency flagged Swalwell to the Department of Justice for potential fraud. And that move is what triggered this entire lawsuit. Now, for a fight of this magnitude, you would probably think it's about some complex national policy, right? Well, it's not. This entire legal storm, believe it or not, swirls around one single thing: the paperwork for a home mortgage in Washington, D.C. So here's the absolute core of the disagreement. Director Pulte alleges that Swalwell committed mortgage fraud. The claim is he called his D.C. home his primary residence just to get better loan terms. But Swalwell's team says that's patently false. They argue he actually went out of his way to be crystal clear, even attaching a sworn affidavit that stated the D.C. home was for his wife, since his own permanent residence is, of course, in California. And this, right here, is where the whole story pivots. Because according to Swalwell's lawsuit, this was never really about a mortgage. He claims the fraud referral was just a convenient smokescreen for political payback. Yeah, the lawsuit tries to paint a much bigger picture here. It alleges that Director Pulte's actions are just one piece of a wider strategy, supposedly directed by the Trump administration, to use federal power to investigate and silence political critics. The central claim is that Pulte abused his powerful position specifically to manufacture these allegations. So you might be asking, why would Swalwell think he was a target? Well, the lawsuit points directly to his history. He's been one of the president's most vocal critics in Congress. I mean, he was an impeachment manager, and he even sued the president over the January 6th insurrection. So from his perspective, this history provides a pretty clear motive for political retaliation. To back up this claim that it's a political pattern, the lawsuit argues that, hey, Swalwell is not an isolated case. In fact, it points to other prominent Democrats who have faced strikingly similar accusations from the very same official. The lawsuit doesn't just hint at it, it names names. It says Director Pulte has made similar mortgage fraud referrals against New York's Attorney General Letitia James, Senator Adam Schiff, and Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. You see the pattern they're trying to establish? All high-profile Democrats, and all accused of pretty much the same thing, misrepresenting their primary residence. And what happened in those other cases is pretty crucial here. As you can see, the criminal case against Letitia James was actually thrown out by a federal judge. And Lisa Cook's case, well, that has escalated all the way to the Supreme Court. So these previous outcomes are really key pieces of context for what's happening now in Swalwell's lawsuit. Okay, so with all of that as background, what is Swalwell's lawsuit actually hoping to achieve? And what specific laws does he say were broken? The legal heart of this case is the Privacy Act of 1974. Now, this law was passed decades ago, right out of the Watergate era, for a very specific reason: to stop government officials from using their access to our private records as a weapon against their political foes. Swalwell's arguing that's exactly what happened here, a modern-day violation of that fundamental safeguard, not to mention a violation of his First Amendment rights. So what does he want the court to do? Well, first, he wants a formal declaration from the court saying his rights were violated. Second, he's asking for financial damages. But the really big one is number 3, an injunction, which is a court order to force the withdrawal of that criminal referral. And finally, he wants the defendants to pay his legal bills. You know, when you strip it all away, this case really boils down to a classic tension in American government. On one side of the scale, you have a congressman's right to free speech and political criticism. And on the other, you have a federal agency's duty to investigate potential wrongdoing. And that brings us to the really big question, one that goes way beyond just this one case. Where do we, as a society, draw the line between legitimate government oversight and the weaponization of that power for political payback? That right there is the fundamental question the court now has to answer.